Alright, welcome back to How to Play Unfair Part 4. Now, I know that at this point I'm probably starting to sound like a broken record because I keep repeating the same things over and over and we're going really slowly through this. But remember, we're not learning how to drive a car, we're learning how to drive a race car. And so we have to understand all the nuts and bolts really well so that it's second nature to us. So we don't even have to think about the basics when we're playing a game. We can focus on the strategy of how to win. Now, just to catch us up to speed, we've done a lot of things so far. We've talked about the game is modular, and it's composed of different theme decks. Each theme deck has a bunch of micro decks within it. The number of players determines the number of decks you choose. Each player can pick a deck, and they're probably going to want to pick the deck that supports their particular strategy of how to get 50 points at the end of the game. Once the number of decks have been chosen, then all the different micro decks within each deck are placed under the correct spots on the board and shuffled together to mix them up. 2 blue city cards are going to be taken out and 2 red city cards are going to be taken out so that there's a total of 8 rounds in the game. Of course, if there's more players playing than just 2, you're going to have to take out more cards to make sure there's only 8 rounds, 8 cards. Then, each player also needs to make sure that they have a scorecard, a known card, a gate card. Doesn't matter which deck those come from, because those are all the same. And of course, also a couple of these showcase cards, which have been randomly distributed. Then each player also gets 20 coin, and one player gets the admit one token, so that they know that they're the starting player. Now, of course, you could roll the dice for that to determine who goes first, or you could just give it to the youngest player or the newest player. Speaking of newest player, in our last episode, we talked about this Game Changer card, which you use if anybody's new to the game, if they haven't played it before. Now, that's critical, but you won't use this every game, only when there's a new player. And it told us to remove the showcase cards, all the blueprint cards, or at least the difficult blueprint cards, and a bunch more of these to make the game shorter. So as you can see, the basics of setup are give everybody everything that they need, shuffle all the decks together, then choose your Game Changer card, follow the instructions to simplify or complicate the game. Alright, so we're now at the point where player 1 and player 2 each have their money, their starting cards. The cards in the board have been properly set up. We've put the starting token marker right to the left of this first ticket, and now we can talk about rounds. Now, I mentioned earlier that the game is over when the rounds are over, and the number of rounds normally is 8. That means 4 blue cards, 4 red cards. However, we shortened it to just 6 rounds this game. 4 blue cards, 2 red cards, because of this Game Changer card. Now, of course, we'll talk more about different game changers in the future. But each round is composed of these steps. So essentially, this is one round. Once we've gotten through all of this, one of these cards will have been discarded, and it will now be time for round 2. We do this a second time. Another one of these cards will have been discarded. Now it's time for round 3. We'll do all these steps again. Then we'll discard another card. We'll do all these steps again. Then we'll discard another card. We'll do all these steps again. The 6th card will have been discarded, and the game will be over. So essentially, you go through these steps 6 times in this simple game, and 8 times in a normal game. One of these complete walkthroughs is a round. Now, I know this is very different than most games. Most games end when everybody has gone once around the circle. That's normally a round in most games. In this game, once everybody's done these steps, the round is over. So this is not the end of the game, this is the end of the round. And as you can see, it's clearly labeled. There's going to be a green event step. All of these 3 actions that happen in this section are called the event step. All of the actions that happen in this red section are the park step. All of the actions that happen in this gold section are the guest step. And all of the actions that happen in that gray section are the cleanup step. So the color is called the step. So event step for green, park step for red, gold guest step for gold, cleanup step for gray. Each individual ticket is an action. So there's a draw action, a city action, a play action, a park action 1, park action 2, park action 3, park action 4, guest action, cleanup action. So the actions are represented by individual tickets, and steps are represented by colors. So during the game, I'll mention event step, and I don't mean necessarily in one of these particular tokens. I mean just any time during this green section, that's the event step. Any time during this red section is the park step. So if the card says once per park step, it could happen here, 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 or here. But as long as it's within this park step, we're good. Now, if it says one park action and is referring to a particular ticket, and same here. The guest step and the guest action are this one and the same in this case. Same with cleanup, although there are orders to the way things happen. So by moving this, we progress through all of these steps and, of course, the actions within the steps, and then we start a new round, and we start over again. Now, let's go ahead and talk really briefly about what all these steps mean. So, in the first step, the green event step, we have an action that says draw. So we're going to go ahead and move that right here, and the person who should be moving this token is whoever currently has the starting player icon. So, since I'm the starting player, I'll move this token to start the game right here, event draw. Now notice, it's green and it says event draw. Here's a green deck. We're going to draw a card. Since I'm the starting player, I'm going to draw one of these cards and place it undisturbed in front of me, upside down. Now, the other player can also draw his card. Now, if we were playing with more than two players, we would go in clockwise order around the table so that everybody, starting with the starting player, has drawn an event card. That's what this step right here means. All right, now that everyone's drawn an event card, you can look at your event card, but let's not do that yet. Next, the starting player moves it to the event city step in the event step. That means that they take this round card and they flip it over into the discard pile. This means that we're now on round 1 because there's one city card in the discard pile. And it's face up, so we have to do what it says. If you look closely at it, it looks like it came from the robot deck because there's a little R in the bottom right-hand corner. And it's called a movie tie-in. This round, during the guest step, can you guess where the guest step is? That's right, it's this golden step right here. When we move this marker all the way to the guest step, this special city card is going to affect something. It says each park will score 3 extra stars. Now, we'll talk about stars later. But the important thing to know is that we're in round 1 because there's one card in the discard pile. It's right side up to indicate that we're currently playing. And it tells us that this only affects the guest step. So players don't really have to think or worry about that until we get to the guest step. Now, of course, it will influence things we do during the park step, which I'll talk about. But it doesn't influence anything in the event step, which is where we're still in the green area. So now the starting player, moves it to the event play. Now that just means play an event card. Now, the interesting thing about this game is, in general, you can only play event cards that are in your hand. And of course, this is our hand. Each of us have already drawn one event card. So now everybody can turn their event cards over to look at the other side. And we can decide, starting with the starting player, right? You're seeing a pattern here. The starting player is always the one who goes first during each of these steps. The starting player can decide whether to play his event card. Now, that's the important distinction here. The player can choose not to play his event card, or he can choose to play. If he chooses not to play his event card, he can say pass, and the next player in clockwise order around the table can choose to play or pass his event card. At this point, everybody only has one event card, so it's a pretty easy decision. Now, something that makes this game different from many other games that have action cards is that it has a top and a bottom. Notice how there's a dotted line with an or in the middle? That means that at the top of the card, you can play this during your turn, or you can play the bottom half. Now, the top half is almost always something good for you. You can benefit yourself by playing the top half of the event card. If you play the bottom half of the event card, it's almost always something bad for other players. So benefit yourself or hurt other people. That's kind of the unfair part of the game, is if you choose to do something good for yourself, there's a immediate, you notice that you weren't able to do something else. So there's always going to be there's always going to be a sunk cost. If you do this, you won't be able to do this, and vice versa. In this case, it says reveal. If we chose to play instead of pass, and we looked at this, we can't do something bad to anybody yet because it says I have to choose an upgrade on a closed attraction, but that doesn't even make any sense, so let's ignore it. Because nobody has any attractions, nobody has any upgrades, so we obviously can't play the bottom half yet. Don't worry, we'll talk about it in detail in the future. But here, it says reveal the top card of the park deck, put it in your park immediately for free, if possible, otherwise put it in your hand. Well, that sounds like a good thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to play this. When you decide to play your event card instead of pass, you simply place it face up in the discard pile next to the green event deck. You read the instructions aloud, along with the title if you wish, and the flavor text if you wish, and then you do what it says. It says, reveal the top card of the park deck. Now, of course, it says park right here on these red cards, which is nice. So you reveal the top card of the park deck, and it says we may build it in our park for free. Now, notice, this has a title at the top. It says Florida's Roller Coaster. That's the name of the card. It's an attraction, and it's a thrill ride. So it's a thrill ride attraction named Florida's Roller Coaster. Now, we won't go into the details of this card yet, but just know that because it's an attraction and not an upgrade, we can build it in our park. So this is where things get interesting. We can flip over our gate card, and you notice that it also has a little star on the top right. Now, we always build to the right of the gate, so this card, following the instructions that was revealed from the event card we just played, we can place this to the right of our main gate. And now we have a little park going. We have a main gate, and just to the right of it, we have a Florida's Roller Coaster. All right, let's make sure there's any more rules here that we missed. It says, if you can't build it, otherwise put it in your hand. Well, we were able to build it because it was an attraction. So, we are good so far. All right, now it is time for the next player to decide whether he will play his event card. So player over there looks at his event card. He can't do the bottom because there's no feature upgrades in any parks yet. But he can play this. It says this round in the guest step, which is where? That's right, it's the golden step. He may score 8 extra stars. Well, that's a good thing. So he's going to go ahead and play that for his event. Now, normally he would place it in the discard pile like the first player just did. However, notice that this player has a top of his event card with a little pin icon on it. That push pin means he actually needs to keep it available because this affects something that happens later. It's not instantaneous like the previous event card we looked at. So he's going to place this guest step card right here beside his round summary card. And he'll need to keep that so that he can remember to do it when we get to the guest step. Alright, so now both players have had a chance to play an event card, and they did. Now we come back to this guy, because we've gone all the way around the table, and he needs to decide whether to play or pass. Well, he can't play anything. He doesn't have any more event cards to play. So he passes, and then this player needs to decide to play or pass. Well, he's already played his event card right over there. He doesn't have any more event cards to play, so he has to pass. And once everybody playing has passed once in order, once everyone has passed, then the starting player moves the token to the next step. So, as you can see, we've now worked our way all the way through the event step, the green event step. Everybody drew an event card, starting with the starting player. The starting player then flipped over the top city card and read the rules. We now know that one city card in the discard means that we are on round 1. And then everybody had a chance to play an event card, starting with the starting player. The starting player played a powerful event card by discarding it, letting him take the top card from the park deck and put it in his hand. Not put it in his hand, build it immediately because it was an attraction, not an upgrade. And then this player played an event card which won't come into effect until during the guest step. So that's the end of this episode. We've walked our way through the event step, and we're just about to start the park step next. That'll be in the next episode. Thanks for joining me.